Welcome to Keep Hope Alive podcast. We are so happy you are here. We've made it to season 17 and we're so excited. On today's show, we have Dr. Brad, and oh my gosh, he is full of knowledge. I can't wait to dive in and do this interview with you. So, thank you so much for coming on the show and everything. I'm excited. Um, he runs HealthfullyU.com. So we're going to cover everything about all the unreversible chronic illnesses that have not got resolved yet. And you guys know, if you know anything about me, the host, I've gone through everything chronic illness and stuff. So we're going to make this a really, really good show and dive in. But before we get started, Dr. Brad, I have one quick question for you.
Okay,
Ready?
I'm
How
ready.
many weddings have you been to in, let's say, the last 20 years?
Last 20, probably close to 15.
15? Okay, perfect. So let's say you're going to a wedding, you're going into the ceremony church side. And then what is that thing called they have that people sign to let the bride and groom know you've been there?
It's not the registry, but it's a guest book commonly.
I'm going to take registry and I'm going to take guest book. Yes. So one of our biggest sponsors is lifeonrecord.com. Now, instead of having a guest book, what they do is they have a vintage phone sitting there. So the guests will go, they'll pick up the phone and say, congratulations, so and so. We're so excited that you guys finally tied the knot. We are happy we're here at your occasion, or you can have the groomsmen, bridesmaids, even cute little messages and stuff. You can leave a message for 1 minute, 5 minutes. It goes up to 30 minutes. But if it's a wedding, I mean, you can
Uh,
use Life on Record for any event, but I would say do it about five or less. Now, what's really cool is if you didn't want to use the phone, they have a QR code. You can take out your cell phone, scan the QR code, and leave the message, either before the event or even after. Now, the couple gets to keep this phone number. They got to return the phone, as cute as it is, but they get it for 1 year. After all these messages are collected, they'll burn it on a 12-inch vinyl record, or it will go on a keepsake speaker box. So let's say you're celebrating your 1 year anniversary and you want to hear all those fun little voices saying, congrats, or hey, we're so
wow.
happy you're here. You guys are good dancers, whatever it may be. They can sit back and relax and listen to those. So their plans start at $99, which is its deal. So for more information on them, you can visit www.lifeonrecord.com. All right. So, Dr. Brad, all these chronic illnesses out there, we want to know who you are. So tell us about yourself.
Okay. Um, my journey in getting into this kind of tells me who I am and all that. When I was about 5 years old, I woke up in the middle of the night with just a gut-wrenching pain. I got a crazy high pain threshold. Ended up first of many visits to the hospital in the middle of the night. Go there, they do some weird things to you, try and get it to calm down. Never, they call it inflamed intestines. Why is it there? What's the problem? What caused it? How do you resolve it? How do you keep it from coming back? No questions ever addressed or answered whatsoever. I'm 5 years old and I'm thinking, this doesn't make any sense. Why can't they tell me what's going on? Why did this happen? What am I going to do to keep this away? And I had a whole bunch of visits in the middle of the night, typically, from things like that. I'm thinking, there's no answers. I'm only 5 years old. There's no answers, no resolution, nothing at all. And this just makes no sense. And
Mhm.
down the road, a few years later, we went on a family vacation up in the mountains. I came home where my whole world was spinning around. I mean, the world spun around me. I was like a drunken sailor. I had to keep my feet really spread wide apart. I'm extremely agile, very athletic, and all that. But everything that I did in grade school was, the whole world was spinning around. And I started experimenting with what I ate, and I realized if I ate different than the rest of my family, I felt better. So I started
Hmm.
cooking at a very young age, like between 5 and 7. Um, and that just kind of snowballed to all kinds of different things. And I've had all kinds of chronic illness myself, full of fungus, Candida issues, gut issues, food intolerances, chronic ear infections. I ended up getting Lyme disease, Babesia, and all that later on in life. No one could ever figure out what any of them were. No one could ever give any understanding or resolution or
Hmm.
solution to any of it. And I was just thinking, that's nuts. That's just nuts. The Lord
Hmm.
kicked me out of construction in my early 20s, gave me a couple of directions. One of them was to quit work and go to school. I've been working since I was 11. It's pretty hard to stop providing for yourself when you're able to do so. But he put me in a not good place. Uh, just didn't know him that long, didn't know much about the kingdom of God, but he put me in a cabinet shop with a demon-possessed ex-Vietnam vet who the last night I worked, I'm working late at night, came out of the boss's office drinking the boss's Tanqueray gin that we got him for Christmas because it was his favorite, threatened 3 times to blow me away and sweep the parking lot with my body. He always had loaded guns on him himself. This is a very rarely traveled road with the snow blowing out up in the mountains. And it was the third time he came out. He's so angry, he's just spraying saliva, and he's like as close as you and me are on these
Yeah.
screens. And I look at him a third time, and I look at him, and I cock my head and I go, "Is that you, Lord? I never thought I'd see you this way." No, that's right. You told me to quit work and go to school. I get it. You're using this idiot, this demon-possessed Vietnam vet, to convince me that I need to quit work and go to school. Okay, I did. And if I didn't go to start then, I would have missed an education that there's very few people in the world that had the education I had. There's a
Yeah.
radiologist there that was writing the most premier musculoskeletal radiology books in the world. He was our
Hmm.
teacher. He taught us how to read history by looking at x-rays, CAT scans, and MRIs. I was one of the few people that was fascinated with that, paid a lot of attention, and I learned how to read history from somebody's pictures, not files, not questions, things like that. But I was fascinated. I picked all that stuff up, and I started, somebody handed a diagnostic club over to me, that there were 3 people that ran the diagnostic club in that school. The organization fell apart shortly
Hmm.
after. I had more exposure to the best doctors in the world in the couple of years that I ran it that people have had in decades of practice, just decades. I got out of school with more clinical experience than most doctors have had for many, many, many years. And I've been told I've been one of the top docs in a different region of the country that I live in now of everyone that's out there. So that kind of brought me to the point of, one, looking at chronic illness. Most people don't realize a doctor, doesn't matter what brand you're talking about, what the specialty is, only helps, not cures, helps 20 to 25% of the people that walk through their door. They rarely can they resolve anything. We're over 4 times that in complete resolution. We work with people that have been to the best specialists in the world. We're worked with somebody in Australia that went to the top Lyme clinics all over the world. We worked with others. We worked with people who spent hundreds of thousands of dollars with no help whatsoever. And we're able to get anyone who follows our instructions healthy again. So we're doing something totally different. And the reason why I'm able to do that isn't because I'm the greatest person in the world with all this innovative stuff.
Yeah.
It's because the Lord made me very inquisitive. I'm really mechanical. Um, in close to 40 years of doing functional medicine, that is all that I do anymore. I've not met more than a handful of doctors that have even looked at their physiology textbooks after they graduated from college, after they got out of grad school. I still use it on a regular basis. You got
Mm-hmm.
to understand how things work, and we've had to develop our own diagnostic system that is so insanely accurate that it's statistically impossible. But the Lord was moving us from one part of the country to another. And people started begging us to figure out a way to continue to work with them because we're going to be a long ways away, over 1,000 miles away. And I didn't have a belief system to even try it.
Yeah.
But after it became pretty clear that we are going to move, I started working with that, and we started testing people farther and farther apart. At the end of my testing, we're testing people blindly, not knowing who they are, not knowing what's going on with them, do pretty full tests, and my evaluations are hundreds of tests. I mean, they're a lot.
Mm-hmm.
We do pretty close to full evaluation, and then bring them back into the office and do them in person. Guess what the difference with the two was?
Gotcha. Okay, that's good though.
Yeah, but
Seeing it
how
at
different do
both
you think the
ends.
two different kind of tests are? Distance, not knowing who somebody is, bring them in the office, do it again. How different do you think those tests were?
Hmm. I would, they would be different some sort. I
Yeah,
mean, for chronic pain, it changes every day. So if you're testing them, like,
yeah,
is it a
you bring
month
them in
apart?
right away. You bring them in
Oh, you
right away,
do?
so you
Okay.
don't have a huge time difference.
Okay. Okay. So if it's right away, then it should be kind of the same, right?
You'd think kind of the same, but you'd think you'd have a significant amount of differences. Ours was identical. It's
Oh, wow.
statistically impossible. Um, and I realized I find things like that humbling. It's not
Uh-huh.
like, wow, I'm the greatest. I find that humbling because God just, He gave us an accuracy and authority to deal with things just because we do what we do with integrity.
Yeah.
That's not
Agreed.
normal. It's not natural. I'm used to that because of, been all over the world doing ministry, and I've seen a lot.
Yeah.
I've just seen a whole bunch in life, and I'm accustomed to that, but a lot of people aren't. One example of that is a year ago, we got a phone call. Um, we were working with somebody in this family. Their younger sister was 5.5 years old, just spent 5 days, 5.5 days actually, in a research hospital doing scans, tests, and all that. They had no idea what was going on. She couldn't walk, couldn't be touched, just laid in bed and cried for five
Oh,
and a
wow.
half days. Um, the older sister prevailed on the parents, said, hey, get hold of my doctor, see what he can do. They got a hold of me. We had him fill out some paperwork. We did an evaluation that afternoon, gave him some directions on what to do. The next morning, she was out of bed. 3 days later, she's outside. And 6 months down the road, she's healthier than she's ever been. She's 1,000 miles away. We never saw her in person. And
Oh,
most people
wow.
say that's impossible. That's that's so common a story with who we are and what we do, just because what we do is so radically different.
You see, and that's something I think others would want to go through if they had a chronic illness, and it's hard to diagnose. So, I don't want to say I was losing hope, but I guess I was a little bit. I was like, well, if none of these doctors here can figure out what's really happening to me, like, where do I have to go? What state do I have to go to? And that's what was scaring me because I think when we're here living in Texas, there should be somebody who has a specialty, which not always follows through that they actually know it. So somebody like for me, I got diagnosed, we'll use me for an example. Couldn't feel my whole left leg, did all the tests. I know I have neuropathy in my feet, but I lost all feeling. So they called it meralgia parathecikia, right? So, but when you go through that, I think they're thinking it's a type of neuropathy, and maybe it is, or maybe it's not. There's not much information on MP that I'm finding. So when I go to Facebook, I'll put, Meralgia Parathecilia group, and there is a group. So you get to talk to other people who have it when they go to visit their doctors. They're sharing the information of what they're getting told, and that kind of helps. Now, I know doctors always say, oh, don't use Google, don't do that. We're not.
Well,
We're just talking to other patients.
there is one real drawback with what you're talking about.
Okay.
Lyme forums are full of this. And this is one of the realities when you go on the social medias for that. You find groups that have similar ideas, similar problems. But what you find in discussions is you find people are experts on being sick and no one knows how to resolve it. And that's the real tragedy on doing the social media thing for all that, because you can, like the Lyme community is the most educated in the world on what's going on. They know way more than their doctors, but they don't have a basis of understanding of disease process, how the body works, how it responds, all the metabolic functions, how they interact, what goes on with a chronic illness. They have no basis of all that stuff, and they promote things that can't possibly work, but they're common. Everybody follows what someone else has done. It's a cut and paste world with no sense in who started the whole thing, and most of it doesn't do any good. That's the real problem on that
Gotcha.
side. And this is what the problem is. This is really where it starts. The Journal American Medical Association, around 2006, is somewhere around there. They published an article about medical education that had not changed in over 110 years. So that's 125 years now. Here, pretty close
Okay.
to that. And what they're doing is they only teach acute illness. They don't teach chronic illness. There's no educational system in healthcare, no doctorate program that addresses the issue of chronic illness. They are all taught acute illness. And what the
Hmm.
Medical Association admitted is that they are pumping out their graduates that are completely um, unable to, unknowledgeable on any aspect of chronic illness, which is 75% of the people are going to walk through their doors. They're
Okay.
unequipped. That's the same thing with all healthcare professions. There's no doctorate program that addresses the issues of chronic illness in any of the healthcare professions. So the only ones who really know it are people who've gone outside of the system. Most of those have figured out their own issues and found some keys,
Hmm.
which is pretty
Wow.
rare, because if you get outside of what's called the protocol, what's accepted, you are run through the ringer where the machine of healthcare is going to destroy you and your life.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I'm seeing that. I am. So
Yeah.
yeah,
So
it's
you
hard.
look at something like what you're talking about, this
Uh-huh.
neuralgia issues.
Hmm.
If you don't understand neurology, you can go, okay, what is all this about? And what are the things that create neuralgia? What are the things that create nerve pain? There's a few things that do that. When you look at your nervous system, you got your central nervous system in your head and down your spine. Peripheral
Yeah.
nervous system goes out into the body from that. So that's the second system. Central nervous system, peripheral connects to the central nervous system. You got a nervous system in your heart called the cardiac nervous system, and you have another nervous system in your gut that's called the enteric nervous system. Those are what control the function of everything in your body. There are things that keep that nervous system healthy, and there's things that make it so it's not healthy. Toxins
Hmm.
destroy it. Your whole nervous system, you got these nerve cells, and then you got these appendages that go out and connect
Hmm.
to all the rest of the nervous system. When you look at the amount of nerves in your central nervous system, there's as many nerves as there are trees in the Amazon forest.
Hmm.
There's as many connections as there are leaves in the Amazon forest. One nerve can have 10,000 connections, and all those little connections that go out, they're called axons and dendrites. They're like electrical wires because electricity goes down them. And they're all wrapped with a fat coating called myelin that's the insulation. One of the biggest things that causes neuralgia is inflammatory issues that destroy that fat myelin coating, and they start to short circuit.
That's
Tox.
what's happening right there because I kept getting shocked. It felt like lightning hitting me like 30 times a day, like
Yeah.
right down the side. I would just walk and I was like, why am I getting shocked? That's what it felt like. So there's different stories. Was that your back doing that, or is it part
Well,
of the nerve?
your back is um, another place where that can come from. You got little windows in between all your vertebrae that go
Yeah.
out and let nerve roots go out. Those windows are called foramen. And if something makes those foramen get too small, it doesn't necessarily directly put pressure on the nerve. With every nerve, there travels two arteries, one vein, or one artery, two veins, and one lymphatic along
Okay.
with every nerve. As you start to put some kind of pressure on that opening where the nerves go out, it decreases the blood supply. And with a decreased blood supply, can't get oxygen, can't get nutrients, can't get healthy. Now that can happen from herniated discs, bone spurs, um, too much swelling, something that wasn't built with enough space. So that's another kind of neuropathy. You have
Yeah.
nutritional deficiencies that create all kinds of neuropathies. And you were talking earlier about gastric bypasses and all that. What that does is your protein has to stay in contact with acid in the stomach for about 2 hours on average for it to start to break down an enzyme, one protease enzyme to break down the protein starts in the stomach in that 2 hour period of time. If protein isn't in contact with the acid, like from a bypass or a stomach restriction, it can't stay in contact. You cannot digest proteins. It's impossible. If you do protein shakes and drinks, the particles are so small, they don't stay in the stomach. They just pass through and they're not in contact with the acid. It has to be in contact with the acid for close to 2 to 4 hours. So when you have something go through your gut that can't digest, it creates this hyperinflammatory response, which you look at your gut lining, it's about a 30-foot tube, from mouth to toilet. And if you look at the inside lining, if you hold your hands up like this, the lining of the gut has these little appendages that stick out called microvilli. It increases the surface area of the gut 400 times.
Oh, wow.
Those microvilli, they secrete out a mucus, and in that mucus, it caps the whole length of the gut. Inside of that mucus is all these bugs that grow, bacteria and yeast and viruses and all kinds of stuff. And when it's healthy, it stays in harmony. But when you create anything that creates inflammation in the gut, those fingers atrophy and they go down. So it's like you're looking at your knuckles.
Yeah.
There's nothing to produce mucus. There's no place for the flora, the microbes to hide. They wash down into the toilet and pathogens start to grow. As that happens, the gut leaks like a sieve. It cannot digest any of the nutrients that go through it in a healthy way. You get whole proteins that get into the blood supply, cause autoimmune issues, toxins come through all that, and you just set the stage for all chronic illness.
Yeah. So anemia is another thing. They never told me, like with being a sleep and bypass, person, that my iron and B12 could be low. And it gets so low that they have to do the infusions on me.
Right.
So
That's because of the maldigestion that I just explained. The
yeah.
most,
So yeah, you did bring that up, and the circulation, that is another thing that I have to work on myself because they're saying I'm not getting good blood flow circulation. So I've tried two different things to try to get that going, but when you're in pain with that, I mean, I guess the best way I can describe with what MP is, I mean, there's times I feel like I want to chop my leg off. Would it be better, because I don't like the feeling. And knowing that I'm 46, it's like, what's going to really take this pain away?
okay,
Is it going to
two
be with me the rest of my life?
two interesting things about what I just brought up.
Hmm.
One study that they did with ringing of the ears, they convinced a few people, how many I don't know, that if they clipped the nerve that went to the ear, the ringing would stop. Some people consented to the
Yeah.
experiment. The ringing got louder. It wasn't the case. When there's an amputation, people have phantom pain. They may not have the limb, but they still feel it. And its
Phantom
sensory
pain. I heard that
input
before.
doesn't go away. It's oftentimes worse. So
Yeah.
it lets you know that's not a solution.
Hmm.
It's what a lot of people will think, but it's not a good solution. The only solution for something like what you have is you deal with the reason why it's there in the first place, which takes a kind of evaluation that medicine doesn't have. You got to do functional evaluations do to find those things out. When you look at lab tests are based off of the germ theory. Louis Pasteur was a father of the germ theory. He spent his
Yeah.
whole life studying germs, believing germs cause sickness. At the end of his life, he realized one of his contemporaries was studying what allows disease to grow in the body. Louis Pasteur was studying the bugs. And Louis realized Bernard was right. I've wasted my entire life. I've studied the wrong thing. The germ is nothing. The soil is everything. The things that go on inside the body is what can determine whether we're going to get sick or not. Once you destroy the gut and its ability to digest, and assimilate the nutrients that go in, you've destroyed anybody's ability to have health. And they're going to be full of all kinds of pathogens. I've done a lot of talks on Candida, leaky gut, the root to almost all illness. I've not
Yeah.
found an illness yet that it's not the root to. People want to be
Yeah.
argumentative about it, but there are people that don't have the diagnostic skills to figure it out. When
Exactly.
with dealing with Candida and leaky gut, healing the gut so you can take the nutrients in, we're able to resolve autoimmune issues, hormone dysregulation, infertility, um, you name it. There's nothing that you can't resolve. And you take, like, Lyme disease is one of the worst chronic illnesses that's out there. You,
Hmm.
we can clear Lyme disease in a matter of weeks, literally. It comes with other co-infections. The worst one is Babesia, and the worst one of those is the divergence form. That might take 4 months to clear, but the gut is still a wreck when all that's done, even if you're addressing the gut the whole time. It takes longer to fix and heal than anything else. And
Yeah.
until you deal with it, you're stuck in something like what you have with just
Yeah.
the little bit that you said. You,
Oh,
and
there's
and
more.
I'm speaking into some of that, and I hope that's okay. But
Yeah. Yeah, that's fine.
you have a maldigestive issue that will not ever allow you to resolve what you have because you
Yeah.
can't digest protein. Once you can't digest protein, your gut's inflamed. It's going to leak like a sieve. Nothing's going to digest. Your your protein's all your structure. It's what
Hmm.
drives your immune system and all kinds of other things. The oils in the diet, all your cell membranes are 95% oils. All your hormones are built off of oils. Your nervous system is 60% water. After water is 60% oils. Of those oils, 60% are fish oils. That's what keeps a nervous system healthy. When you have a leaky gut, you can't absorb, you can't absorb minerals, vitamins, protein, oils. All your cells are on fire
Yep.
inflammatorily because they can't have the the different things to make them
Hmm.
healthy. The membranes in the cells are supposed to be really liquid and fluid, and that's what fish oils do. If you eat too much animal fat, they're rigid. Stuff bounces off of them and can't absorb into the cells, and you just set the stage for someone to
Yeah.
have a living hell of a nightmare with no help from anyone who doesn't understand what I just talked about.
Yeah. It's
There's a
just,
simple solution for what you have. You got to figure out all the different things that are creating the neuropathy. If that's spinal, there's things that you do spinally. Surgery's not the answer. You can't
yeah.
undo it. Um, I talked to somebody a little while ago who lived in a house full of mold, and they were all proud that they just had a surgery to take a 3 centimeter, might have been 3 millimeters, just a small round ball of mold out of their nose, and they think they're going to be good. And it's like, how many surgeries do you think you're going to be able to do to get rid of all these colonies of mold?
My friend passed, and that was part of it. Her place she was renting in Indianapolis was full of mold, and she got exposed to it. The spurs got into her lungs. She code blue 3 times,
Hmm.
was put on oxygen. But it's sad because the landlord would not do anything. She's tried to do her case, but no lawyer wanted the case. And now she's in heaven. And I mean, it's things like mold, yeah, you can't just take away it. That's going to go deeper, right? In the
Yeah,
system.
there's no faster way to get anything into your blood than through the lungs.
Yeah.
It's seconds. All
Okay.
your blood
So,
goes through your lungs or it goes through your body. And you think about it, same volume goes through your lungs as goes through your body. So
yeah.
Every beat of your heart, half goes through
Yeah.
your lungs, half goes in your body, and the two cross in the
Wow.
circulation and all that. And that's how you get oxygen. Get rid of carbon
Yeah.
dioxide, some of the other things. You get that into your lungs. Mold doesn't usually grow inside of us unless our immune system is completely depressed,
Yeah.
but it's always going to filter through lungs and try and filter out in other things. The cell membranes of mold, fungus, fungal parasite, and yeast is all made up of chitin. Chitin is what's the outside shell of beetles, crickets. It's what's on the outside of shrimp. It's impervious to your immune system. Your immune system can't touch it. The only thing that can regulate chitin is a healthy flora, the microbial coating in your gut, in your mucous membranes, reproductive tract of a woman. That's what controls that. And when you wreck it, you have no
Yeah.
protection,
Oh boy.
absolutely none. So, you think about what people are doing with mold. It's easy to kill mold. Any
Yeah.
acid will do it. Usually vinegar or your green muriatic acid on unfinished surfaces in a home. It'll kill mold. There's nothing like
Yeah.
acid that kills it. You drop a fly or a beetle in some kind of acid like lime juice or vinegar, and it just dissolves it. It's just one of those realities. It dissolves chitin, but nothing else does. People are coming up with these crazy enzymes that are liver toxic, trying to do all kinds of stuff, and they just don't understand the physiology things. They're just cutting and pasting some stupid thing that somebody came up with that will never help anybody at all.
Yeah.
One of the a little while ago, I had somebody that I started working with, and they got some children with some issues, and they got a bunch of fluid coming out of their ear. Went to the medical doctor, and they said, "Oh, you got a strange kind of strep throat that you don't have a sore throat with." Hang on, that
It's like, what?
yeah, it's like
Yeah.
I've had enough strep throat. I mean, it doesn't come without a sore throat. So,
Yeah.
I
That's,
did an evaluation
yeah.
with that young person. They got no strep throat. They got a plethora of all kinds of other things. The biggest issue is these food intolerances that respond in the ear and making the ear just weep all kinds of fluid, along with a bunch of other things that are going on,
Yeah.
but everything makes sense. You pull those away and they can have their life back. You start dealing with and healing all of the things that are causing all this. You give them their
Hmm.
life back. And that's something that anybody looks at our website, they'll see as a hallmark of the people we work with. They get their life back. Nobody else
So,
does that. Most people will say, oh, they work with Lyme disease and, we get people so they don't have Lyme disease anymore. But are they healthy?
yeah. That's
Nobody
what
wants
they
to
need to
answer
know.
the real question.
Yeah.
People on our site, that's one of the biggest things. They get their life back. And that's the
And you hear
hallmark
that,
of
guys. Yeah. You get
yeah.
your life back by taking a more natural, healthy look at it too to make it better. So that's really, really good. So they're going to go to your website, healthfullyU.com, correct? Do
Mhm.
they set up a appointment or a consultation?
Yeah, there's a page on consultation. There's a couple forms on there. You fill out the
Okay.
forms, send them back to me. I ask a bunch of questions because my consultations aren't like anybody else's. It's not a sales
Okay.
pitch.
Yeah.
A lot of people learn more about their health in one of my consultations than going to multiple specialists over decades because I'm
So
looking
yeah.
at root issues, what's really going on, what do we expect, and what's it going to take to resolve that. That's what my consultations are about. I've also got access to a book that I've got in there. It's called Exposing Lyme and Chronic Illness, where I go through the progression of what goes on with pretty much all chronic illness. There's a bunch of chapters on physiology, how things function. People need to know how things function. There's more information in that book written in a common language for a common person, but it could be used in a doctorate program of any healthcare profession. There's more information, more science in that than they will learn in the whole of their schooling.
Oh,
It's
wow.
huge, and it just
That's
covers
really
everything.
good.
It makes everything make sense.
So
One
that's
of
really
my
good. And I'm going to add your book to our storefront so they
yeah,
can go and get the book and buy it too and read it. So,
one of my beta readers read it. She said, "I'm gonna have to get a hold of you, because I got a whole bunch of health issues." She looked at what I had for the diet in that
yeah.
book, which is extensive. Um, I didn't know what she had, and I had some interaction with her later down the road. She said she had all kinds of adrenal issues, hormones are dysregulated. She was diabetic. She followed what I had written on just the diet. She Her hormones normalized, her adrenal healed. If you got off her diabetic medication, she's managed her sugars all just by diet.
Oh,
And
wow.
that's just reading the book.
Yeah.
And I never did anything. That's how powerful that book is. It's huge.
Oh, I got to get it. I got to get it. I want to read
Yeah,
it.
it's
So,
every chapter is got a story of somebody who dealt with that kind of aspect, what went on with their life and all that. And there's only one chapter that I don't have a story about, and I thought it best to not put one there. That's one on hormone dysregulation, intimacy. We talk about what creates that whole nightmare, that inflammatory nightmare that hits women harder than men. You look at
yeah.
things like ED, it's a bigger issue in women than it is in men, but no one
Hmm.
addresses it. No one talks about it because they can still engage sexually, but they can't get any fulfillment because everything's on fire. Their tissues don't erect, they don't engage, and there's just not the stimulation that goes on. And you address that whole issue, and
Yeah.
you bring the fact that all of this can be normalized and calmed down and brought back to normal health, and that's best to leave it there.
Yeah.
You
I
don't need a
agree.
story on, okay, this is how somebody resolved that. You got a ton of stories, but that's where you close the doors.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Oh my gosh. This is all knowledgeable, and I have your whole bio, and I know you cover so much more different illnesses and everything. So, really quick, because we're a little bit short on time, what other ones? You got Lyme disease, there's just chronic fatigue, I think you said in your bio and everything. What are some other ones that they can reach out to you for?
Um, some real simple ones, women that have problems with pregnancy. My oldest daughter, they killed her um, with her second delivery.
Uh-huh.
They screwed everything up. They tried to pull her placenta out by the umbilical cord, ripped the umbilical cord off, put her in surgery, pulled that out. She bled to death. She died.
That
They
just breaks
they
my
they
heart.
they pumped her full of blood and brought her back shortly. No brain injuries and all that. Her husband's sitting there in the waiting room with a brand new daughter that he's thinking he's got to raise two girls without a wife, without a mom, and it just pretty well wrecked him in a really big way. He got a hold of me when she got pregnant a third time. We dealt with a whole bunch of nutrition issues were going on. She had the textbook perfect pregnancy and delivery. MRIs of her placenta were the most perfect they'd ever seen.
Hmm.
Yeah, it goes anywhere from infertility, pregnancy issues, autoimmune issues, hormone issues. Thyroid's a
Issues.
really huge one. I think it's
Yeah.
fun to work with women who've been on thyroid meds for years,
Oh
oftentimes
boy.
decades. They're in their 80s. They got straggly hair. They're monotone, just paper thin skin. They have no energy. They've got, just the whole thing that goes on with that. They've gained a whole bunch of weight and all that. They wean
Yeah.
off of their thyroid meds, or doctors help wean off. They get their energy back, their hair starts to thicken, their skin becomes vibrant, multicolors, and when their libido comes back, they just get giddy.
Yeah, yeah, wow. So,
Yeah,
yeah, I know a couple of people with thyroid issues in medicine. So that
yeah,
seems for me when I go, I'm scared they're gonna say I have something wrong with my thyroid, but I haven't been diagnosed with any of that at
yeah.
all.
But the
So,
diagnosis is atrocious. They're
mm,
completely wrong because they're looking at lab tests that don't tell you the reality of what's really going on there.
yeah.
The thyroid, it's what gives you your basic metabolic rate. But your thyroid is 50%, the thyroid is the cause of 50% of women's menstrual problems. Thyroid dysfunction is the cause of 60% of miscarriages. When you
Oh,
start to
wow.
look at things from that standpoint, and all the women wrestling and struggling with their cycles,
Uh-huh.
the thyroid's half of it.
Oh, wow.
And you
Oh
you
my
you start
gosh.
pulling, taking questions of all your audience on all the women with cycle issues. It's going to be a huge sector. Half of
Yes.
that's thyroid. Half of those problems are thyroid.
Wow. And to my listeners, if you have any questions for Dr. Brad, you can always call 833-780-HOPE, and I'm going to pass that message on to him. And we're going to follow up and get those questions answered too. But definitely, I want you guys to reach out to Dr. Brad because it seems, and I know you go above and beyond to help people out. And I love that about you. I know I'm going to be contacting you sometime this week and telling you the rest. Maybe you can help me put the pieces together because I'm lost in the world of the medical field right now. So, but if I
Yeah,
can start doing things to help me, I want to be able to do that. And if you guys
yeah,
are on the same boat, definitely reach out. This is great that we had you here today to talk to us about this. Your podcast, is that also called your website name? I'm
I've been
sorry.
on a bunch of different podcasts. I don't have my own yet. People
Oh,
have been
okay. I
trying to
think you
talk
did.
me into starting one, and
You
you
should.
understand on how big it is, big a commitment. You
It
got to
is.
figure out, okay, what am I going to do? How often am I going
Yeah.
to have it? What are you going to do for guests? How are you going to promote it? And I've got my hands in so many things. I've got so many hats, it just doesn't sound possible.
You see, I mean, people have told me that, how are you going to monetize? How are you going to do this? How are you going to get the numbers? And then you get all these emails. Hey, I can do this and this. But you know what? I say, God, take the steering wheel. This is my blessing, my podcast. I'm going to just share it. And whoever I get for a guest is who I get. And I'm going to be happy to interview them. But I've sat back. I've been blessed. I think I've done since of June last year, 184 interviews.
Wow.
So I'm just like, and it is a lot of work. It is a commitment. And I'm going to tell you right now, I did have a break and I needed the break for health issues and changing the lifestyle really quick. But I had to sit down and go, you know, what did I do? I was doing a podcast almost every night and then doing a bunch when I had a day off. And to me, I was getting exhausted. So I'm dedicating 2 days, offering three for each day and doing it that way. So but getting stories out there is so important to be heard. And there may be times a surprise day is opened. If anybody wants it, let me know. I'll do their interviews. So, but it's definitely something you might want to think about, but don't stress out over because it is fun and you're very knowledgeable and you can help a lot of people. So it's
Yeah.
like the gift of almost it is healing. You're healing and you're putting that through your word of what knowledge you have, and that's so important. So, but really quick, I might have to bring you on a second show because I have so many
Um,
other
yeah,
questions.
I'm game. I've got a really deep well, as you can tell, of subjects
Yeah,
to tap into. And what you just said is a reality. We can't just hardly cover the tip of the iceberg in one
yeah,
like this. So I'm game. We can, there's a bunch of things we could do. We could do one just a Q and A.
yes.
We could hit any subject you want.
I would like that. So I would definitely want to explore that option with you. And I think that'd be fun to have our guest write in with any questions and we'll get those answered. So let's get that scheduled. I promise that's going to be a fun one. So
Yeah,
we can put it out on Facebook and see what we get. And I'm sure there will be a lot of people who will write in. I know I wanted to send this show over to the Chronic Pain Foundation also because they're trying to get the word out there, and I am a part of that foundation. So um, I like to advocate for people who do have chronic pain, and if they are starting to feel hopeless, that there is light at the other tunnel. I'm human too. Sometimes I go through those challenges. It's like I give up. I don't mean to say that, but the world gets to us. I'm not going to sit there and tell somebody, oh, you can't have those feelings. If you do, just remember if you can educate the real reason of what's going on in your body, do the self love also, but see what you can do to help release stress from your body. What helps you is a certain food that might take the pain away. I know I am working on my stress level because if I have high stress, then everything shakes up. So it's pretty hard to do that. But really quick, thank you so much for coming on today. I really appreciate it. I'm bringing you back. So, definitely, I wanted to thank our other sponsors to keep hope alive. We have lifeonrecord.com with they do the phone vintage calls for any event. So you can reach them at lifeonrecord.com. We also have snap bands, and I'm going to go in more detail about snap bands, but there are these fun bracelets. You've probably seen them on Facebook. Mine says Hope. The back of them, they have an elastic band. If you do a little, it helps scientifically, it's under like a narrow thing through your body to your brain. If you have OCD, PTSD, anxiety, it can help you definitely re-trigger that thought process of what's going on. They come in all different colors, all different mantras. I know I use mine when I go to the hospital because they're always having to stick me with a needle several times. So I'm always praying over nurses who have to take my blood work. So, but definitely, I want you to check them out at www.snapbands.com. And it is SNAPPBANDZ.com. Our next one is Ogden Ventures LLC. Marcus Ogden, he is a former NFL football player. He has his own podcast. He is an author and public speaker now. He does really, really good. Check out his work at www.marcusogden, and it's spelled MarquesOgden.com. Our next one is Bridal Shows Inc. They throw the most lavish trade shows for the bridal and event industry. They have about 5 to 6 out of the year. You can log on to their website, see what shows are coming up, and explore a world full of vendors that can help you out with your big day. Our next one is Bryce Harney. You can find him at www.brycemagic.com. Mr. Harney has been on every single news channel, it feels like, and he's a great magician. His magic, I am telling you right now, get on to Google, get on to YouTube or TikTok, look up Bryce Harney. His magic is phenomenal. So big thank you to him. Also, as a sponsor, we next have Richmond Punch. .net. Richmond graduated from the Juilliard, top honors. He's a violinist. He's been doing that for over 30 years and he's really good at it. He's had a couple TV spots. He's done a funeral. I think there was 1 million people at this funeral too. So, and now he is on tour, ready to go. But if you are looking for a good violinist, reach him for your next event. Our next one is Miles and Smiles Events. Miss Deborah Rose, and that is a .com. Her background, she used to be an investigator, but now she is handwriting analysis and lipstick reader. And I'm telling you, she is 100% accurate. I've seen her at her events. I've interviewed her. She's even checked out me and my stuff that I had, and she's accurate. And I'll just sit there and watch her, and everybody's like, how'd you know that about me? How'd you? It is amazing. So check her out if you need any of that as well. So remember, you can find all our episodes at www.keephopealivepodcast.com. Find us on Facebook, and wherever you guys find your podcast, you'll be able to find us. Once again, thank you, Dr. Brad, and to everybody else. We'll see you next show. Love and light.